Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Dan Spooler, the co-chair of the North Carolina Blockchain Initiative. Welcome to our 7th industry webinar. And before I get started, I wanted to take a moment to recognize the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Forrest, and his staff. I'd like to recognize my fellow co-chairs, Eric Porper and Farouk Oxetin, and also today's presenters, Matt Yarger and Ann Smith from the IOTA Foundation. I also want to thank and recognize our esteemed members of this task force, all of which are listed on this slide in front of you. As you can see, they come from a wide range of backgrounds in business, policy, and academia. We're truly grateful for their contributions and support. So what is the North Carolina Blockchain Initiative? This nonpartisan task force was formed back on July 2nd, 2019, under the supervision of the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, and it was established to study, examine, and evaluate the unique attributes and use cases of blockchain technology, virtual assets, smart contracts, and digital tokens, and with an ultimate goal of promoting opportunities for economic growth, cost efficiencies, and strengthening our state as a leader in technological innovation. And today we're excited to learn more about scaling and data and value in smart mobility and cities with the IOTA Foundation. Please note that if you have any questions, we will have a chance at the end for a Q&A portion, but we'll keep everyone muted during the course of the webinar to ensure that there are no interruptions. Therefore, please feel free to type in your questions in the chat area. And without further ado, I'd like to pass this over to Matt and Ann.
Hi there, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just want to give a quick introduction to myself. I'm Ann Smith. I am the head of mobility and automotive at IOTA Foundation. And my background is in the network security and quality management areas. I'm currently in California. Normally I'm based in Berlin. Who knows where I'll be next week? We'll see. So yeah, if you have any questions, as I said, we're happy to answer them at the end, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you were interested in.
And hi, everybody. I am Mathew Yarger. I am the head of smart cities at the IOTA Foundation. So in that role, I deal with a lot of local and federal governments and setting up projects and integrating products with cities pretty much globally at this point. Before I joined the IOTA Foundation, I was actually a U.S. federal employee as well. So I did 8 years at the National Security Agency doing signals analysis, cybersecurity, and cyber operations planning. And after that, I did 2 years at the Department of Defense Cyber Crime Center, where I did digital forensics and focused on research in blockchain as well. So let's go ahead and kick off here. So the vision for the IOTA Foundation, the whole reason we are, is we're working to connect billions of people and machines through a feeless, decentralized protocol. There's a lot that comes along with that, as you'll see throughout this presentation. So let's start out by going into the foundation so you can understand who we are and where we come from. The foundation was founded in 2017 to develop the DLT that we have as the IOTA protocol. We were the first regulated DLT nonprofit founded in Germany and funded by crypto donations. So that took about 1.5 years. We were formalized in November of 2017, but the work started in early 2016 to begin that, and the protocol traces back to 2015, early 2015 with its initial developments. The foundation is right now about 110 plus different individuals with 25 different nationalities. So we in itself are a remote only predominantly and very decentralized organization, all working towards this vision. So we like to think that we have one of the largest and most vibrant DLT ecosystems. If you follow us on social, you'll see that we have a very active community. We are building with a ton of different companies all around the world and different project areas. We have large amounts of open source developers that are working with us. We actually fund project through the open source community as well. So if we have people or organizations in our ecosystem, they can actually apply for a grant. And we've funded 27 grants to date, which in 2.5 years is pretty good for a smaller 110 plus person organization. And many of the projects have actually been adopted by partners or have grown into their own businesses and flourished pretty well in the past 2 years. So the story of IOTA, to trace it back a little bit, I think it's very useful to understand the context of how IOTA came to be and understand that we're not something that just started in 2015, but the founders of IOTA actually have roots in blockchain back to 2010. So back in 2010, they were working on Bitcoin, and when Ethereum came out, they were working in the Ethereum ecosystem as well. And then they actually worked together, the founders did, to build the first proof of stake blockchain, which was NXT, or one of the first proof of stakes. I believe that might be a little bit contended with one others, but that's up for conversation, I guess. And then 2014, they realized after the proof of stake developments through NXT and their lessons learned and their lessons throughout the Ethereum and Bitcoin development, that the issue wasn't with consensus necessarily, but it was with scale. So the sequential chain of blocks, while it has a lot of amazing capabilities and has a lot of security implications and things of that nature, when it comes to adding in large amounts of devices or large amounts of users, there's always a constriction there. And so it becomes a constrained environment for production use cases. So that's when Sergey Popov, one of our other founders, brought the directed cyclical graph architecture into the picture. And the IOTA protocol was really initiated because the directed acyclical graph, or the DAG architecture, allows us to scale data in real time and send data and value in real time, which is something that's been proven pretty difficult over the last 10 years with blockchain technologies. In 2015, we had our first 500K donation round, which was the inception of the foundation. And that has grown pretty substantially, but it was only about 4% of the overall token estate of the ecosystem. So it's not a large percentage of what's out there, but it was enough to get us to where we are today, and we've done pretty well with it. 2017, as I said, the foundation was established, and now here we are in 2020, where we have learned a ton in the last 3 years. We've professionalized internally, operationally. We have a lot of lessons learned on how the Tangle operates and how to take this math-based structure and implement blockchain technologies and consensus and immutability into it in a very scalable way. And now we're going into our mission. So one of the key areas that we are focusing the use of the Tangle and the IOTA protocol is in the use of public infrastructure, digital infrastructure, because one of the biggest trust areas with IoT and public infrastructure is around how to manage data and how to provide access to data in an open and transparent way, but also have security in that inherent in that infrastructure. The existing infrastructure is not currently ready for the 21st century. There's a lot of flaws with the way that technology operates on the edge, and a lot of flaws with how we provide access to that. So from a cybersecurity perspective, the centralized system construct is not the best for providing transparency and access to the data on infrastructure and for scaling the use of that infrastructure. One of the biggest things that implementing the IOTA protocol can do for digital infrastructure is it can remove these single points of failure all the way from the edge, because it's about getting that data to wherever it needs to go by whatever means necessary. To do this, we believe that we have to work together in a very collaborative framework, and we have to bring companies in, and we have to provide essentially an open and trusted middleware for companies, cities, and nonprofits to work together to enable cities and infrastructure, which also includes, of course, the automotive smart mobility sector, supply chain, energy, telecom, and multiple other key areas. But there are currently no standards that facilitate this in an open and scalable way for machine-to-machine communications or interoperability. We believe that the IOTA protocol is very well suited, and we're working very diligently to enable it to be that standard. So IOTA bridges the digital and physical infrastructure for an open society. By integrating the IOTA protocol into digital infrastructure, it allows people to trust the data that their cities can provide and that the devices that communicate in their cities provide. So in the context of automotive vehicles, it allows you to trust that the vehicles your vehicle is connecting to, or the infrastructure that your vehicles are connecting to, is not being tampered with, and the data for things that in the realm of connected and autonomous vehicles is trusted. So now we're going to dig into the technology a little bit. The IOTA Tango technology offers quite a few different unique capabilities. One of the biggest ones is immutable data transfer. It's highly scalable because of the STAG architecture, as we discussed. It has very, very low energy requirements. And essentially the way it works is any device that wants to participate on the network to send a transaction has to validate two other transactions. So consensus is inherent in the participation method of putting transactions out of the network. We're transitioning into optional quantum resistance. So currently we have a quantum resistance signature method, but we're also adding non-quantum ones so that for situations where it doesn't need it, you don't necessarily have to use it. Everything is feeless in the IOTA protocol. So to send data or to send value, there are no inherent fees in doing that. This enables microtransactions at a different scale than most other technologies offer. So if I want to send a fraction of a cent, I can send a fraction of a cent, and it can go from here to Japan in a relatively short amount of time. And we have no issues with that. And then we're also working with control and access management rights with some of our new product lines. One of the biggest differentiators with how the IOTA Tango and the IOTA protocol operates, which enables these different kinds of capabilities, is we operate more under a parallel architecture. So what this means is to send data on a traditional blockchain, you have to send value, and that data is paired with that value. So you're paying to send your data upfront. With the way that the IOTA Tango operates, you can send data or you can send value. They're not paired together. This enables a whole different level of flexibility, because if you want to work on use cases initially that only operate on data, which in the context of cities and infrastructure, that's typically the case, you can focus on just the data aspects. And then whenever the time comes and you want to use the value transfer aspects, they're a function of the network. So it's a very inherently easy capability to enable value transfer if you already have the infrastructure integrations and you're already doing the data capabilities. The data capabilities can add a lot to the security context of solutions. And then the value can operate essentially as a settlement layer or an incentive layer, depending on your use case. We have a lot of different areas of integration for technical innovations. So we have a whole suite of developer tools and actually some hardware that we've started to produce. The hardware was one of the things that was actually funded under our ecosystem development fund as well. And then we have a whole list of different product areas that we're working in. The predominant ones are secure data streams and decentralized digital identity, and then data and industry marketplaces. Those are the three core existing product areas, and they actually enable some of the other product areas like the certificates and audit trails, and the digital wallets, of course, being necessary for the data transfer and the value transfer. And then the access management being one of the new product areas and functions that we're building into the core protocol. So to delve into some of these products, the secure data streams is something that is inherently unique to us. Essentially with this, which we call IOTA streams, it used to be known as mass authenticated messaging, but we understand that that name doesn't necessarily roll off the tongue, and it doesn't necessarily let you know what it does. So we wanted to simplify it, and we changed the name to IOTA streams to enable that. But what we can do with IOTA streams is any data capability that you have where you have a device and you want to have a consistent life cycle of that device, you can create a IOTA stream for that device. And you can do this at any point that that device has connectivity. It can be something that's embedded into the production process of a sensor as it's manufactured, or it can be something that you do postscript. So something for a device that's already active, like a vehicle or a roadside unit or your smartphone or anything like that. And you can also build it into applications. So you can just integrate the libraries for IOTA streams into existing applications without even needing to dive into, do I need to run a node, or how do I update this, or how do I control my network interactions? You can offload all of that to a node that's already on the network, and only focus on the library integrations to give you the decentralization and distributed data capabilities that come with IOTA streams. And this can be extremely powerful, whether it be something just along the lines of decentralizing a standard process. Like from my cybersecurity background, I like to use the example of event logs. So anybody in the cybersecurity realm knows that if you have an intrusion or you're under attack, or if anything happens, one of the first places you need to go is you need to go to your event logs. You need to understand what happened. But also from my background, I know that if you are proficient at what you do, you go in and you clean those event logs and you cover your tracks. But that means there's a single point for you to go in and clean those tracks and make sure that no one knows that you were there in the first place. But if you take your event log and you implement a function like IOTA Streams with it, then you can distribute your event log to a number of different devices in your system, depending on how you have your infrastructure set up. And that makes it extremely difficult for someone offensively to come in, execute on that single point of failure, and then cover their tracks, and make it very difficult for your cybersecurity operators and cyber defense personnel to understand what happened and respond appropriately. Another one that we've been working intensely on for about the last 12 to 18 months is IOTA Self. This is going to be our decentralized identity and certificate wallet. So essentially it allows you to create your own identity and use that as your digital identity to validate yourself online and with different types of applications. So this is based on the DID standards that are being built by W3C. We prefer to build everything we are on existing standards. If there are existing standards, if they're not, then we actually take the time to work with our standards bodies to develop specifications, which then evolve into standards, or are evolving into standards as we speak. But with Self, you can essentially build a wallet, or you have a wallet to build your identity. You can then link credentials to that, and a credential can pretty much be anything, any type of document, so a bill of sale, a title, a bank account, anything that you want to link to your identity, you can do that. But the most important aspect of this is you're not linking this and allowing somebody else to store and control that data. You're actually bringing that back to you, and you're bringing that power and control back to you as an end user, and allowing yourself to control and store that data, and then control who has access to it and who doesn't have access to it in a very easy way. So with our token area, this is the overall impact that we've had in the last 2 years. So currently we have a little over 390,000 active addresses, and we've transitioned $173 billion in value since 2016, I believe, since the mainnet went on. Or maybe 2015. But the good thing about that is that's $173 billion that was done feelessly. There were no ACH fees. There was no time limits on 5 to 10 day wait periods. Every dollar that was sent was a dollar received. And we think that's very important for integrations into infrastructure and the automotive sector and the different areas we're working. Because if you have fees inherently built into the way that your system operates, then it's a bottleneck, and it stops flexibility in use cases and adds a point of resistance that we need to work to get rid of. So we've gotten quite a bit of validation, but we're gonna stick to just the standardization area because we think that's the relevant area for this audience. We're working with quite a few different standards organizations and open source organizations and regulatory organizations. We helped become founding members of ANATPA, and one of our director of social impact and regulatory affairs currently chairs the board for that organization, and that was co-founded with the European Commission and the European Union. And it's working to do regulation in the area of blockchain throughout Europe and globally. We're also working in the telco area with TM Forum, and is very involved with Mobi for the mobility area and some of the other open source initiatives we're working on with Fireware and the Linux Foundation and the Eclipse Foundation. We actually have our core open source area being transitioned under the Eclipse Foundation. Currently we have a few different projects, but as we grow and progress under Eclipse, we'll be moving more and more of our capabilities to be housed under the Eclipse Foundation to kind of remove the control of that code and everything and the governance of that code from the IOTA Foundation to a more open source mechanism. And then we work very closely with the object management group to develop our specifications and standards. And we're working to have some standards coming out within the next 12 months, I believe. And now I will transition it over to Anne to dig deeply into automotive and supply chain, and smart mobility. My apologies.
No worries. Thank you, Matt. So yeah, so this is all a bit theoretical, but we do have many different real live projects, proof of concepts, things we're doing with partners. And so I'm going to go through a few of the ones that we have in the automotive and mobility space, and then also talk a little bit about Industry 4.0 and what IOTA has been used for in smart factories. So the first one we wanted to kick off with here is a project that is being done by our partner Jaguar Land Rover, where they have taken the IOTA protocol and implemented an IOTA wallet into the software of the car itself. And this is something that I think, given everyone I've been talking to in the automotive and mobility industry, this is really the direction that most vehicles are going to go, especially when we start talking about autonomous vehicles, where they're going to have to pay for things on their own. They're going to be these autonomous economic agents, the vehicles themselves. And to do this, you've got to have the car wallet built into the vehicle itself. And not only is it used for payments, but it's also used for data transfer. So as Matt mentioned earlier, the IOTA protocol has been designed so that you can transfer data or financial transactions without any fees whatsoever. And if you think about it, modern vehicles have at least 200 sensors in every vehicle. And there's the opportunity to monetize this data and share this data. But in a traditional blockchain, if you're having to pay, say, 10 cents for every transaction you send, if you've got 200 sensors in a car, each sensor sending maybe one data transaction every minute, you can see this is just not scalable. You cannot do something with DLT technology where you have to pay for every transaction. You're not going to be able to take advantage of all of this data that's now become available. So this is what Jaguar Land Rover saw, and they've implemented this wallet into their vehicle. And what you can do with it is it will actually, not only can you pay for things, but the vehicle itself can get paid as well. So for example, if the vehicle detects a pothole, it will then send this data to the local city, to the maintenance facilities, and then that facility will be able to have a really good picture of the condition of the roads, and they'll know better how to go out and where things need repairs. But I want to show you the video now of the Jaguar Land Rover wallet in action that they put together. right, so this project was done about a year ago. It is ongoing. They're now implementing this technology in some of their newer software and their newer vehicles. But to make this happen, you need lots of different players in the mobility field to participate. So that's what our next case study is about, is a smart charger that was built using IOTA. And this was done because right now smart charging is really kind of a pain. You've got to have memberships in charging networks. You've got to have your RFID card, or you go and pay with your credit card. And it's really kind of a pain for everyone involved. And so this group, ALAD, they thought, well, what if the charger has an IOTA wallet built in? And what if the car also has this IOTA wallet built in? How would that work? How would that make a difference for people? And so what they did is they implemented a smart charger that has IOTA, and they put the IOTA wallet in a car, and everything happens. It's just plug and play. You just drive up, you plug the vehicle in. It does all the negotiation around price, what the capabilities of the car is in terms of charging. It just does all this automatically with no user interaction required. So again, I'm going to let them speak for us, or speak about this project. It's a really interesting one, and they have continued this project as well.
We are at the ILAT premises in Arnhem, and we are now at the test lab of ILAT, which is used for testing charge stations and electric vehicles. This is the world's first IOTA charging station being released today here in Arnhem. What's special about this charge station is that it can do direct payments from car to charger using just a cable, and it doesn't require any RFID card or any subscription. It just uses IOTA. IOTA is a cryptocurrency and a protocol. The cryptocurrency you can think of as it is used in Bitcoin, for example, and the protocol is much broader. So you can also use it for data transportation, data integrity, and data security. Bitcoin is in this case not suitable because it requires a lot of fees to do a transaction, and IOTA is free of charge, so that makes it great for using it in these kind of use cases. And the most unique part here is that you can have real machine-to-machine communication. A car with its own wallet and the charger with its own wallet, and they do a direct communication and payment to each other fully autonomously. So you just plug in the car and it works. The importance of this charge station is to show that you can use cryptocurrencies and the underlying distributed ledgers to do things like this, and to show the capabilities of these technologies and the potential. And the way we envision this is that you also can directly, for example, buy energy from a solar panel from your neighbor. Or in case of some kind of congestion, the charger can ask the car to deliver energy back to the grid and pay for that using IOTA. Of course, we cannot do this on our own. We need others to bring this further. So we would like to invite you to co-create and work with us together to bring this further.
So yeah, so that's their vision of their original smart charger. But what they have done is they have gone on to develop an autonomous grid balancing product that uses IOTA that helps in electricity grid balancing. And this has become more and more important as demand on our electricity grids goes up, and it will become even more critical as the adoption of electric vehicles comes up, because this is going to change the electricity usage patterns. And right now, generally our infrastructure is really not set up for this increased demand. So ALAT has continued with the IOTA protocol with their charger. And so for our next use case that we wanted to show, this kind of combines all of these. This is another critical area where everyone has to start working together to make this happen. And so what we've done in this use case, it kind of combines the two we just talked about, but we are part of City Exchange, which is a Horizon 2020 funded project in the EU. There's 32 partners and across 11 test beds all over Europe. the start of it is in Trondheim in Norway, whereas they have this building that is an energy positive building, meaning it tries to produce more energy than it consumes. That is the whole idea behind this. And so to do this, they have, for example, installed solar panels all over the entire building. It also sits on a geothermal source. So there's lots of different energy sources at this building. And it's all connected. Everything in this building is smart. To the controls of the lights, they don't turn on unless there's a person in the room. Same thing with the heating and air conditioning. So what we were able to do as part of this project is we were able to connect into the control system of the building, into their APIs, and then use this data when a Jaguar Land Rover vehicle was connected to and charging, and combine this, and we were able to show the transactions as the vehicle was charging and where exactly the energy was coming from. So we could tell whether the energy was from primarily a green source or your standard energy source, and display this to the vehicle user themselves. And this was a joint project that was done with Jaguar Land Rover and NG Labs and this city exchange building, Trondheim. So if we could go to the next slide. This is exactly what was shown to the user of the vehicle during the charge. And what you can see here is the total consumption of the building, and the little green bar down at the bottom, you can see that is the actual charge of the vehicle itself. And over on the left, you can see the total solar panel production, total consumption. And with all of this data, what this enables is the user to see the source of their energy. And although we don't show it in this slide or on this dashboard in the car, this came in a later version, you could also see the percentage of the energy that's green. And this is really important because you see there's a lot more consumer demand for green energy, or being able to see where the energy is coming from. And the idea is, while the vehicle is plugged in, like we saw in the previous use case, the user will be able to perhaps decide to pay more if they can prove that their energy source is green. And another thing this enables, when you can trace exactly where the energy is coming from, is carbon credits. And this is something that I've been working with the Moby Foundation in their electric vehicle grid integration working group, where we're defining standards along with Ford and Pacific Gas and Electric, among others, on how to use blockchains in precisely these use cases. What kind of data must be on the blockchain, and how can this be shared in a secure way while protecting the user's personal identifying data. So again, now we're getting into these use cases where it's all combined. The different players work together to make something happen. Okay, so this one's a little different, but it's something that is becoming more and more popular. Right now, there's already some usage-based insurance products out there where you plug in a tracking device in a port on your vehicle, the OBD port, and it will then send telematics data to your insurance provider. And at the end of the month or every 90 days, your insurance will be charged based on your actual usage. But this is really inefficient. And so it really does need to be modernized. Things right now are quite inflexible. And if you don't have this sort of slightly more modern usage-based insurance, it's really unfair. The current insurance rates, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're driving, it's flat. So if my car is parked in the driveway for most of the time, but my neighbor's driving around a lot, we're still going to pay mostly the same rate, which really isn't quite fair. So what one of our partners Biotosphere has come up with is a usage-based insurance where the car itself has, again, it has a wallet integrated in, and it actually pays for insurance on the road as it's going. It chooses the insurance policy based on the conditions that it's driving under, and pays for it in real time. So not only does this have benefits for consumers, but it has benefits for insurance companies. You have your accounting that basically happens immediately rather than having to wait months. And so there's a video here. We're not going to show it. It's about 53 minutes long, but it's really worth watching because this is a live video, a live demo, where you can see down in the lower left, that's Terry. He is the CEO of Biotosphere. Down in the lower right, you can see a picture of one of his employees driving his Tesla, where he's integrated this. And this is the dashboard where you can see the actual usage-based insurance happening. And if you look at the upper left, you can see the cars in drive. You can see the big red special condition. So he's driving too fast for the speed limit of where he's located. So therefore his insurance rate has gone up 5%. You can also see the the funds that you have in your wallet, what insurance provider you're using, and then down at the bottom, transaction status that shows you in real time what's happening. So this is done with the Tesla because right now Tesla's API can be engineered so you can see this data happening in real time. If you're at all interested, I really recommend watching the video. It's just mind-blowing. But again, this is all done with IOTA. And because IOTA is open source, anyone can do this. Anyone can take our code, download it from GitHub, and give it a try. So what really we've been talking about here, all of this is this connected infrastructure that we're going to be seeing in the future. And here we talk about it's vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to infrastructure, even vehicle to pedestrian. You can imagine someone walking down the street looking at their phone and they get a notification pop up that there's a car coming, you're about to be hit, move. This is kind of the big vision of all of this being connected. But it's really about everything being connected, not just vehicles. And it's a lot of work. There's a lot of regulations that have to happen. We've got regulations all over the world starting to require that vehicles be connected. And there's also a lot of security questions, personal identification, data questions. How is this going to happen? And it's a lot of work. And you may wonder, well, why? Why should we do this? And there's a really simple one reason. I mean, the technology is really cool. It's very exciting. We can see how this would make our lives easier, but there's also another solid reason. So next slide, please. So I love this slide because it just brings the benefits to a point of why you want to have this connected cars, connected infrastructure. And this is something from a paper by PricewaterhouseCoopers called Leveraging Smart Infrastructure in Smart Cities for Urban Mobility. And if you take the middle column here, if just 33% of cars are connected, that gives us $117 billion worth of benefits per year, which breaks down to $750 per car per year in benefits. And this is not, as you can see here, this is not just benefits, say, to car manufacturers or repair shops or whatever. This is absolutely for everyone, these benefits. And that's with only 33%. If this jumps up to 80% of vehicles being connected, it's almost $2,000 per year of savings per car. It's really phenomenal.
And this is only in the US as well.
Yeah, again, yeah, that's a good point. These numbers are taken only for the US. Of course, worldwide, this then goes up dramatically. Okay, so the last use case that I wanted to show you is slightly different than mobility, but a lot of these are related. As Matt mentioned, I'm very involved in the MOBI, which stands for the Mobility Open Blockchain Initiative Group, where we're defining standards around mobility. But that also gets into things like supply chain or automobile manufacturing and how to use DLT technology in these areas. So this is a case where a Fujitsu has used IOTA to track the manufacturer of high value products in the factory itself. And in this case, as the product was being built, a type of digital twin was created of the product. So for example, say you're building a car, electric car, and you put the battery in. During the manufacturing process, everything about the car and the manufacturing process is put into this digital twin. So when the vehicle comes off the factory line, you've got this permanent record of every part that went into it, all of the serial numbers, etc. And this is incredibly useful in so many different use cases because, for example, say you discover that a part needs a recall. Right now, you might have to recall 200,000 vehicles or washing machines or whatever product it is you developed. But if you have this digital twin, you're going to know exactly which faulty parts went into exactly which finished products, and you can narrow the scope of this recall dramatically just by having this digital twin. The other thing this enables is, this is being heavily researched and used in again in the automobile sector, but when a car is created, it has this sort of birth certificate with all this information in it. And through the entire life cycle of the vehicle, you can track things like all of the maintenance that you had done on it, any upgrades that you did. For example, Volkswagen just today released news that they created a patent about over-the-air software updates using IOTA. So you can have a permanent record of all of the software updates that you did on your car by having this digital twin. And this can start in the factory. And then you can also think end of life. What's really becoming important is recycling. And whether or not a component in a product can be recycled often depends on how it was treated during its lifetime. This is particularly true of batteries in electric vehicles. So having this digital twin of the vehicle and knowing exactly what happened to the battery at the end of life means you can recycle the components in the most efficient ways possible. And so we're enabling this sort of circular economy by having these digital twins. So this is incredibly valuable. And my background is also in manufacturing and kind of why I got into IOTA, because I used to have to go to China to do factory audits. And we never trusted anything that they did there. And when I first saw IOTA, I thought, wow, this would have solved all of my manufacturing problems at the plants in China. Well, most of them. So this video is about 4 minutes long. We don't really have time to watch it, but I highly recommend watching this video as well. So really, those were just a few use cases that we have. There's many more. There's a lot more in the automotive area and mobility area that currently are under non-disclosure agreements, so I can't really talk about them. But we're just getting started, and we are very interested in moving forward. And we would love to work with all of you in the future and get your input on what you need the IOTA protocol to do and how we can make that happen.
Well, thank you very much, Anne and Matt. This is Dan Spooler again. It certainly has been a pleasure to have both of you present today on behalf of IOTA and IOTA Foundation. We've received several questions. Some of them came in through the chat room on the side, and I know some of them came in through email. So we'll be sure to work with you to get you all of those for answers. I know you've already been able to answer quite a bit. In the meantime, we encourage all the listeners to also tune into our new updated website, ncblockchain.tech. where we're going to be featuring this video. We're going to put it up on our YouTube channel. And feel free to send us ideas and content for future webinars. We'll be hosting another one in 2 weeks. But first, again, I want to thank you, the IOTA team, for presenting today. I also want to thank Blake Brewer and the Office of Lieutenant Governor on behalf of myself and our co-chairs. We'll see everybody next time. Thanks again.
Thank you all so much for coming.